Let's move into the next segment, Jeff. Let's talk about all the latest and greatest news with the Falcons, rumors, and the first thing before we get to actual players, the schedule is going to be released, I believe, this coming Wednesday. And
Yep.
one of the things circulating on X right now is that the Falcons are rumored to be the team that will play the Colts in Germany on November 9th. We know that the Falcons have marketing rights in Germany, so that connection makes sense. Have you heard anything different, or is this just a rumor for right now? Are people just trying to connect the dots?
So I haven't heard anything. People keep asking me that, and I just simply ignore it because I don't have any information on the schedule. So last year I didn't get any information about the schedule until the day before the release. And so typically, and that was the first time. Honestly, last year was the first time that my guy had ever sent me anything on the information. I do know the team knows their dates. The team obviously because they have to make travel arrangements, and the NFL obviously helps with all of that, but partnerships helps. But yeah, the team knows what the schedule is. I haven't asked. I haven't gotten any information. Last year it was the day before that I was able to give you guys information. So I don't have any info. I have seen that the whole November in Germany, which I'll be honest, I don't know that you want to be in Germany in November. It's really cold. There's a lot of snow on the ground, and it could be for a travel nightmare. So while I hope that rumor is false, hopefully they play in Germany earlier in the year. You definitely don't want to be in Germany in November.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be cold there, but their stadium. Sorry, I'm kind of like a nut for like those soccer stadiums in Europe. Those stadiums are all really freaking cool, so that part of it would be nice. But again, hopefully, it's earlier in the year, and also, what do you call it? I'm happy that we don't have to give up a home game for it. It would be someone else's home game, so yeah, I don't mind that at all. Um, one of
I
yeah,
will say that it is interesting to me though that you are going to play games in Germany, and I say that because NFL Europe was a thing. They had teams in Berlin as well as Frankfurt. Frankfurt was actually really good, won a couple titles in NFL Europe, but they would not. Those two franchises, Berlin. I think it was the Berlin Rain and the Frankfurt Galaxy. They weren't very popular, right? American football was not popular in Germany, so it's really weird for me that the NFL is like, "Hey, we're going to come back to Germany." And look, I get it. NFL Europe was not what the NFL is. I completely understand that, but there were some dudes that played for both franchises that ended up having pretty good NFL careers, and so I think it's weird that the NFL keeps wanting to force American football down the throats of Europeans. Because to your point, Europeans love soccer. They don't like some of the, and we do have some fans in Germany. We have some fans that subscribe to this podcast that interact with both of us, almost daily on there. So shout out to all of them because I'm not talking about you. But by and large, Frankfurt and Berlin are not huge oases for American football fans. And so, it's just really odd for me. And again, hopefully, if the Falcons are the team that goes to Germany, and I think we know that they are, I just don't know that we know when. But again, you better, I promise you, you better hope it's not November.
Jeff, what about Hard Knocks? So I don't think the team has been announced yet for this season. Do you think that the Falcons have a shot at being the team featured on Hard Knocks?
100%. Because you look at the criteria, the Falcons, like no team within the last certain amount of years, no team, blah, 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 blah. The Falcons are absolutely going to be one of the finalists. And I think when you look at some of the, when you look at the young talent, there isn't a franchise in the NFL with more young talent than the Falcons have. And so they're really, really intriguing. For me, I have zero desire to see the Falcons on Hard Knocks. Not because I don't want to see the inner workings, but because, how many teams typically go on to have really great seasons after being on Hard Knocks? I don't know that it's a whole lot of them. The last time we were on Hard Knocks, Mike Smith said some really dumb shit, made us look fucking retarded. Okay. I have zero desire in seeing Raheem Morrison. Like, Raheem seems to be a little bit more well-spoken than Mike Smith was. Let's be honest. The last time we were on Hard Knocks, Mike Smith said, well, socks aren't important to me. What? And it was funny because when the week that came out, I actually worked. I did a show that same week with Jamal Anderson, our former running back, not the defensive end, but our former Dirty Bird himself. And so we were actually we did a show together that night actually after Hard Knocks, and that came out. And Jamal was pissed that type of nonsense came out of his mouth. He was like, people don't understand what an embarrassment that is. And so we actually spent some time talking about it that night on air. And then he got a DUI a week later and got fired. But nonetheless, even NFL players former Falcons were just like, holy shit, Mike Smith actually had the audacity to come out and say sacks don't matter, because they fucking do. And so I just have a really bad taste in my mouth from the last time we were in Hard Knocks. I have no desire to see the Falcons on the Hard Knocks. I know they do. I know we all enjoy having behind the scenes opportunities to see our favorite teams and our players and that kind of thing. Hey, just as a request, NFL, can we get some Hard Knocks with fucking officials? Like, I want to see the behind the scenes on your referees that make some really bad calls that ultimately, be a deciding factor, not the deciding factor, but a deciding factor in games that are won and lost by teams. That's what I want to see. Stop putting players out there for this shit. I want to see officials get reprimanded. I want to see what goes on, because you look at the popularity of the NFL, it's because of gambling. And how many millions are won or lost every week by flags that show up out of the fucking blue. And you go back and you're like, well, wait a minute. And then you got to listen to some blowhard on one of the networks justify some bullshit ass flag. I want the Hard Knocks that shows that. I don't want the Hard Knocks that shows teams. I want to see the Hard Knocks to see what kind of reprimanding that these officials get for making these really bad calls, and what that process looks like. That's what I want to see. So no, I have no desire to see the Falcons. I want to see officials be held accountable behind the scenes is what I want to see.
No way that the NFL does that, though, because that'll make them look like shit.
No, but again, when you look at the popularity of the league, it's because of gambling. And millions of dollars are won and lost every single week because of calls that are made by guys wearing stripes that aren't playing in the game. And so I want, if the NFL really wants to be open and transparent, fucking show that part of that, right? Go make these officials be on some sort of reality show. Hell, make it a Hunger Games where you make a really bad fucking call, you get executed for doing so. You know what I mean? Like, let's make this be absolutely as ridiculous as possible, because let's be honest, some of these officials are absolutely ridiculous. Some of them have no idea what they're doing, and the calls that these guys make and these women make with games on the line make you scratch it. If I had hair, I would pull it out some of these weeks. And it's just absolutely atrocious that they keep getting away with this. And but the NFL keeps doing this whole, well, we're going to show you your favorite team every week, and now you have an in-season Hard Knocks. Why? So you forget about all the bullshit that happened on Sunday during a game. And so for me, I want to see something intriguing. Stop running teams out there. I want to see the inner workings of the NFL. I want to see some of this shit that we actually want to know what goes on as far as officials go, because they don't have to answer to the media. They don't have to go through the scrutiny that players do. Yet they get to make these atrocious phone calls. They get to make these atrocious calls during games that affect outcomes and aren't held accountable for that. And so I think there should be some sort of public accountability for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, if we are on Hard Knocks, right, it's not only if we say stupid shit. First of all, everything's going to be amplified. Second of all, we know how much the media loves to make us look stupid. So whatever opportunity they get, they are going to definitely try to, exemplify it, make it bigger than what it is. And I don't want this for this young team, but unfortunately, it might not be our choice. So we'll see what happens. Last year, Jeff, circling back to schedules, we had 4 primetime games, and one we got flexed into, Sunday Night Washington. This year, there are a couple of teams that I think are worthy of a primetime slot. So I'm going to just list off 4 teams. You just let me know if you think it's possible. And I know you don't have any information on it yet, but the 4 most likely games I think we'll get in primetime are Commanders. That's a rematch of last year. Obviously, you have our former coach Dan Quinn on the other side. We have a rivalry between Daniels and Penix. I think the Rams are possible because that's Raw's former team. I like the Patriots too. I think that obviously we have the Super Bowl rematch storyline, historical. Then you have May versus Penix, two rookie QBs from the same class. And the last one that I think might happen is Minnesota. Obviously, we had the Kirk Cousins drama, but that might not even matter at that point. But again, you pit a QB, JJ McCarthy, against Penix. I think that also could be in prime time. Which game do you think might end up being prime time next year?
So for me, I always want Saints Falcons prime time. I don't know that it's going to happen now, right? Because they probably won't be very good. I think the Rams is intriguing.
We also got Buffalo too coming to Atlanta, so it would be fun to see Josh Allen in a dome.
That would be a fun one on prime time. I think that with Josh Allen, there's just because there's so much going on in Buffalo or with Buffalo, there obviously will be there'll be a one of the three two or three favorites to win the AFC, and so I just wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons didn't have any primetime games initially coming into the season and get flexed into one or two of them at the end of the year because of how good they are. But for me, yeah, I mean, I would like to see, at least one division game, maybe the Bucks, because they will be good. They will be favored. If a primetime game between Baker and Penix, I think would be, Baker, Penix, Evans, London, the two defenses, like that could be a really fun game to watch in prime time. So for me, that would be a great one. Minnesota doesn't do anything for me. LA to me doesn't do a whole lot for me. But again, coming off a year where you shit the bed at the end of the year, you didn't have a great final 8 games. I don't know what the TV draws were for the Falcons last year. Are they prime time? I don't know. So when you look at these, who's the prime time draws? Josh Allen is a prime time draw, right? Like everybody wants to see Josh Allen play, regardless if you're a Buffalo fan or not. You want to see Josh Allen play because he's a great. So I think that could be the one that is a potential prime time for sure. Again, the other one for me would be a game versus the Bucks. I don't care if it's home or away. Primetime games in Atlanta hit a little bit different. We love the party in this city, and so primetime games gives our fan base time to actually show up. Though my suggestion is if it's a primetime game here in Atlanta, tell them it shows that it starts at 4:00 so they actually show up on time. Because we all know the late crowds in Atlanta love to show up fucking late for games, and it irritates the absolute piss out of me. But yeah, there's some opportunities. I would tell Falcons fans, just don't be upset if you initially don't have any primetime games and you get flexed into a couple of them once you've established how good you're going to be.
Yeah, I mean, look, last year we started off with 4 and we got flexed into 1, and the only reason we got flexed into that, I think, is because people wanted to see Jaden Daniels versus Penix, and maybe there wasn't really anything else they could flex either because Penix didn't really establish himself before that happened. I could see us getting 3. If I had to predict right now, I think we get 3 off the bat with the upside, and especially there are different rules now. It's easier to flex into primetime games as opposed to years past, and I could see us getting into another 2, hopefully. But primetime games are always fun, Jeff. I was actually at the Commanders game last year when we went into overtime in DC. It was crazy. I'm just happy that their fans aren't as rowdy as some other fan bases, because I was definitely losing my mind, going crazy, getting food thrown at me and everything. My wife wasn't really happy with me. But anyways, let's move on to actual player news. So here's one that that happened earlier this week. Jeff, the Panthers, who took 2 defensive ends in day 2 in the 2025 draft, ended up cutting Jadeveon Clowney, who in the last game of the season basically made Caleb McGarry his bitch, for a lack of better terms. He annihilated McGarry, and he really was a problem for Penix. So I think, maybe he's not going to go up against McGarry every week. I think he definitely has some juice left in the tank. I was actually surprised that Carolina cut him because they're not really paying anybody, right? Like, why not have him kind of train the younger guys? I know we talked about Judon potentially coming back in, even though we drafted JPJ and Walker. Do you think there is any chance that the Falcons are interested in Clowney?
God, that is such a really good question. I, I think it depends on what Clowney's mindset is, right? Does he here in what is this year 14 or whatever this is for him? Does he think he's still a starter? Because if he does, then no, there's no room for him here because like you've got the two young guys that you're gonna get on the field. And so if you're gonna bring in another veteran in addition to the one that you already brought in here, is Clowney going to be willing to accept a reduced type of role? And so I think any franchise worth a shit is going to reach out and look, I think Jadeveon Clowney is overrated. I think he had one of the most overrated plays in college football history. When Taylor Lewan and his guard miscommunicated and they left him wide open for that hit, and like nobody has milked more of a career off of one single play than he has. His NFL career has not panned out to be what it was supposed to be when you take a guy number 1 overall. I'm not a big fan of his. I think he's more of a locker room issue and throughout his career than he's been worth. So, from a personal standpoint, I hope they don't. But I know Falcons fans really like Jadeveon Clowney because they're reminded of that game last year, right? Like they really think that that's who they're getting, and it's just not. You go back and you watch him last year. That was not who he was. He just happened to find a tackle that he could absolutely fucking abuse, and it happened to be Caleb McGarry. And so I just don't know that he would be worth whatever money you're going to give. I don't know that he fits from a culture standpoint. I don't think he fits from a leadership, because when you bring in a vet, right, you're bringing them in because you want some leadership from them at the end of their career, right? Like this is not year 5 or 6 for him. This is the end of his career. And so is he willing to provide that locker room leadership that it needs, that you would want from him? And I just don't know that he is. I don't know that he's ever been that type of player, right? So there's a lot of questions that I would need answers to before agreeing to even entertain that if I'm the Falcons. And one is he willing to accept a reduced role and be more of a leader than on the sidelines, on the field, in the locker room, than on the field, with the understanding that, hey, we've got 2 young first-round draft picks at your spot. They're going to get the first, second, third look. Are you okay with that? And if he says no, I need to be a starter, then you move on because you don't need that type of friction in your locker room. So I know people will want him because he's a name, right? And that's what we do here in Atlanta. Anytime a big name that we recognize becomes available, we're like, hey, let's go get that guy, right? And that's just not. I just think this is one of those names that you just leave alone. I think you've got some really good guys here in this locker room, and if you do want some veteran leadership, go out and sign a guy who was here last year. For me, at this point, I would much rather have a guy like Judon than a guy like Clowney. For all the reasons that I just listed. He's not a locker room cancer. He's a leader. He understands what that is going to look like, at 32, 33 years old. So for me, I would rather have Judon than Clowney, but I know Clowney's a bigger name, and people will remember him for what he did to Caleb McGarry, not necessarily what type of year he actually had.
Yeah, I mean, someone like Judon has been in big games. He's played with Baltimore and New England, so like he knows what that culture was all about. So you want people like him. You want people like Ramsey, for example. I know he's a big name too, but he's won a Super Bowl. He's close with Raw, and like he could really change that defensive mindset we have. He brings a certain swag. Those are the types of people you want. I'm with you. Clowney's a big name, and I think he could actually find success in a limited role with us. It's just, that room's so crowded right now, which is crazy. And I love even saying that. I'm not even going to lie, Jeff. Like, I was looking at our defensive depth chart the other day, and I was just like, oh my God, we are so, like, even you move to our, like, backups, the second stringers, like, you got some names back there too. Like, this is real. I think we might field one of the best defenses we've seen in, like, in a while, I would say.
Yeah, but I think it also depends on, I think if they're looking to add anybody, who are you going to add for that nose tackle, right? Like that's the one piece where I think that they still need somebody. And you look at the depth chart on this defense, and it just sucks not having Brady here because like this is what he wanted during his time here. And it sucks that we finally go out and get Grady the help he needed, and he's not here anymore, right? So, but I do think that nose tackle, if you are going to run a 3-4, and we obviously don't know yet, they haven't announced kind of what they're looking at. But you probably need help at that zero technique than you do anything else right now. So for me, if I'm the Falcons, I look to see, who at that position potentially becomes available here in about 3 weeks for those June 1 cuts.
Yeah, really good point. Question from X, Jeff. Isaiah Bond, wide receiver from Texas, didn't get drafted. He was regarded as a day 2 pick before some off-field issues came about. Would Atlanta ever consider signing Isaiah Bond?
I mean, do you really need another playmaker on offense right now?
Yeah,
I think that's what it comes down to. Character issues have always been a really big issue here. He brings a lot to the table. There's no doubt about that one. He's got a lot of talent. I just don't know when you look at where this team is at, they don't need any other help on offense right now. And so, for me, I don't know that they would. I think, again, the glaring hole that this team needs is that zero technique, if you're going to run a 3-4. So, I think anything else other than that, you are just kind of, dipping a turd in gold at that point. If you're not going to address any remaining needs, wide receiver is not a need on this team right now. Can you improve it? Sure. But how much are you going to improve it with a rookie who may not be focused on football? And that for me is the big thing is he may not even be focused on football right now.
Exactly. And by the way, our wide receiver room, I mean, obviously we have London as our big dog. You got Mooney there. Ray showed signs. Even Kadero Hodge, you remember he had the game-winning touchdown against Tampa. Like, those are 4 pretty solid receivers. And then, on top of all of that, we have an undrafted free agent, Nick Nash, who I think could make the team and possibly be on the 53-man roster during the season. Like, watch out for him too. So, like, I don't know that we want to throw Bond. Not saying that Bond isn't talented, but there's a lot of baggage that comes with him. And with our team being so young, I think you need to be extra careful of the players you put in that locker room. You want leaders. You want Judons. You want Ramsey. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's really important for our, younger people to look up to these established veterans that's won a couple titles. So someone like a David Andrews, for example, who was the center for the Patriots, won 2 Super Bowls with them. Like, he may be more valuable to us. And by the way, Georgia kid, like, he may be more valuable to us than another center needy team, right?
100%. 100%.
So, we'll see what happens. I think we're going to get a lot more movement at post 6-1 when a lot more cuts and activities are going to be made. So I think we're going to kind of lay low for a little bit. We'll have some meat on the bone after the schedule's released. We can talk about that. That'll probably be the main topic of our show next week. But it's probably going to be a little bit of a dead period between 5:15 and 5:31. So
100%.
We'll see.
100%.
Last thing I want to close with, Jeff. So speaking about Kirk Cousins, we talked about how a team maybe like the 49ers, if Brock Purdy goes down, or another team that's just, have their eyes on the Super Bowl. Let's say Pittsburgh, right? If it doesn't work out with Aaron Rodgers or someone just becomes desperate, could a first round pick be on the table? And what I wanted to share with people is a comp for a situation like this. Let's rewind the tape back to 2016. The Vikings, ironically, had Teddy Bridgewater have this catastrophic injury in training camp where everyone was kind of like, people were like looking at that injury, and I remember there were rumors that like the receivers are like throwing up and stuff. It was just disgusting. And It was really unfortunate too because he was starting to really catch on, and his career was really never the same after that again. They ended up trading their first the following year and a fourth round pick for Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford was taken, I believe, 1 overall by the Rams 6 years prior to that. He never had a winning season. He was averaging like 3,000 yards per game, 20, I think like 16 touchdowns. Nothing really to his name. Like, I don't think he's ever had a season where he's ever been 500. So, bottom line, pretty mediocre guy, but the Vikings were desperate at that point. So, they gave up draft capital. Again, Bradford might have had that allure that he was a little younger and a former first overall QB, but I wouldn't put it past someone like a Kyle Shanahan who's worked with Cousins, who wanted Cousins, by the way, before trading for Garoppolo. He tried to sign Cousins. So these teams need to win. Like, when you have teams that need to win now, like Pittsburgh, right? Tomlin's on his last threads. Like, he can't go into the season with Mason Rudolph. If Rodgers just retires, I think they become the number one candidate for Cousins. And then, we're talking about how much money they're putting on their books and how high that draft pick's going to be. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, when desperation meets need, right? Like there's always some things that can take place. And so, but that's kind of going back to why I think the Falcons, and I've said this for months now, that's why the Falcons aren't in a rush. Like the money's already on the books. And so for them, they're going to wait until the last possible minute to get rid of Cousins if it happens. Because of the injury factor in this league, right? And that's been the case as long as the NFL has been an entity. And so I think the Falcons were smart, much to the dismay of national media. Like, oh my God, they still have Kirk Cousins on that roster. Kurt wants to be a starter. Well, good for fucking Kurt. He shouldn't have sucked last year then, right? Like, otherwise Kurt would still be a starter. So, if you're the Falcons, you wait and you wait and you wait. And patience is the name of the game. And if you can be patient, typically you're going to be rewarded in this league. And so they're not in a rush. They won't be in a rush because of examples that you just gave. Hell, we already, one quarterback is already done, right? Like that's, if, God forbid something happened to like Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, right? God forbid something happened to Josh Allen in Buffalo, right? Like, Joe Burrow has a history of some injury issues in the NFL, right? Like some of these big name guys goes down. These franchises get a little bit desperate of wanting a veteran quarterback to come in and be able to make sure that they stay within their Super Bowl window. So, be patient, stay patient. And I think it all ends up working out one of the ways it's supposed to. And I think that the longer the Falcons wait, the better that pick becomes.
Yeah, absolutely. The one that I think would be the most fascinating, and I don't wish injury on anyone, it's just a funny situation to me, is if Stafford goes down and we get our first round pick back. That would
be hilarious.
Yeah. But we wouldn't get credit for it. It would just be a bottom page thing. Oh, by the way, Falcons traded Kirk Cousins. Finally, they should have done it earlier. That's the way it would probably be spun in the media. So
no doubt.
We'll see what happens. It'll be exciting, and we're getting closer to that. But that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you all, whoever was listening live. We really appreciate that. We're on YouTube and Spotify, so check us out there. I'll throw up the edited videos, some shorts, and everything later today, so that'll be all up hopefully by tonight. We'll be back next week. Maybe Friday or Saturday we'll announce then. But again, really appreciate all you guys, and we'll keep this rolling.